stream. Okay, so we should be live.
Cool. Will we be able to see the chat?
Yes. Yeah. It's gonna be on Twitch.
Cool. I have the Twitch window on the side over here. So.
You're very professional.
I have the Twitch window.
Okay, let me just mute it. Okay, cool. Okay, I think we're live. So,
nice.
Welcome everyone to our very intense session on ReactJS, Twitter, live, universe, and everything. So we're also going to be offering relationship advice, among other things, if that's needed. But mostly it's going to be a very technical talk because we're both very technical people. So I'm Eva. That's me. And then we have today Cassidy. So Cassidy, I was thinking, since maybe people don't know you, if you could just do like a 2-minute introduction to who you are, what you do, stuff like that.
Cool. Well, together we're Ava Cassidy, so I feel like we need to sing some jazz or something. Yeah, I'm Cassidy Williams. I don't exclamation on the sweatshirt. Yes, this is my handle, but I don't get to wear this in public because I don't want stalkers. But on the internet, everyone already is, so it's cool. And my sister got this for me. But anyway, I am a software engineer / teacher person. I'm in between jobs right now because unfortunately my company had to lay everybody off with the virus, but that's okay. And I've got some few things in the fire. But anyway, yeah, I have a tech newsletter where I share interview questions of the week and jokes and web news and stuff. And I mostly do React. I also do a lot of just CSS art and stuff. I build lots of keyboards. I've got some keyboards kind of peeking out in places, that's a quick summary. Oh, thanks, Dan, for saying I tell good jokes. I have the chat over here, so
no, that's good. Good. That's good for the confidence. I wish someone would say things like that to me. I should have fans as well. So
I'm your fan.
Thank you, Cassidy. Thank you. So how's the job market right now? Just like a quick, is there a big difference between, would you say, like before and after COVID, or?
It's weird right now. That's something where everyone is either hiring a ton or is on a hiring freeze, and there's very rarely in between. And that's definitely what I've been finding. There's people hiring, and so I've been interviewing a bunch this week, but it's also been very weird because there have been some places been just like, wow, we wish we could talk to you, but we started a hiring freeze this week and everything, and it's funky. I with my previous role again, before they had to lay us off, that was actually the big debate because they were saying we do have runway for another month or two, but we don't know when the pandemic will end. We don't know how many hiring freezes are going to happen, and so it's better to just give severance and let you go now so you can get jobs now rather than hope that you can get a job later. It's a weird time, but luckily there's enough people still hiring that I've been able to nab some interviews.
Of course,
this week.
And you have that special set of skills that just come in handy in times like this. So you do a lot of React. ReactJS. So why React for you?
I first started doing React a long time ago.
Before React was React, you were doing React, or?
I was doing React when they were still changing the version numbers monthly. Right. I think I started working on it React 10 or React 11. So that was back in 2014.
Wow.
Or so. Yes, I've been doing React for a long time. I've seen a lot of changes happen in the React ecosystem. But I really like it. I think that it's been maturing in a really good way. I've always enjoyed React, but the fact that it's maturing in a really good way where it's starting to lean in more towards the functional programming aspects. I think React hooks are a really great just paradigm and way of going about things for modularity. And I just really like how state-driven React is. And I feel like it's a really nice way to be declarative when you code where you can say like, in this state my application should look like this, in this state my application should look like this, and I mean, I don't have to sell the virtual DOM, it's used in Vue and everything now too, but I just think that they've been going about it in a really smart way, and I really enjoy writing in it.
So do you have a favorite hook?
This is something that I don't know if I would have ever said this before, but I really like use reducer. I feel like if you combine use reducer and use effect in a really good way, you can basically make a whole promise API within your application with different states and basically turn your reducers into state machines. And I think that's very powerful. When I was first learning hooks and stuff, I was just like, oh, I'll just use state. That's all I need. But I've been liking use reducer more and more. It's very flexible.
And if someone would come to you and say like, how do I go about learning React? What would you tell them? Like how would you learn React today?
That is a good question. And there's almost too many resources out there. There's courses that you can get on like Egghead. You could even go to React training where I used to work. Our courses are still up there. The on-demand video ones. We've got Udemy and Skillshare. There's courses all over the place. But really, if you're learning React from scratch, the first thing I would say is really just know JavaScript, because so much of React is just JavaScript where I always try to emphasize React is a library and not a framework.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of sprinkle in as much React as you want and as little as React as you want and still have a relatively vanilla JS application. And so if you, as someone said, hooks literally hooked me to React. Same. I think if you're solid in your JavaScript, then like for example, React doesn't care how you organize your application. You can import things left and right. And so if you are very opinionated and stuff on how your application should be structured and where components and stuff should live, that's half the battle, I think, for actually learning React syntax and stuff. You can do that on YouTube. You can do that on Free Code Camp, on I'm sure something like Code Academy and stuff has it too. But yeah, once you have the basics of JavaScript really down, like knowing destructuring, knowing spreading, knowing what the reduce function does and what map does and stuff, that's a lot of what you end up writing in React anyway, with just some little sprinkles of JSX in there to put together the components, and then learning hooks.
Yeah, and how about for state management? So now that there's hooks, how do you manage state in your typical application? Do you go still Redux way? Do you go React context? Do you go what?
No Redux. I'm of the opinion that like 99% of your state management can be done with use reducer and the context API without having to use Redux at all. So it's good for its time. It really strengthened the concept of a reducer for state management, but you don't need it anymore. And the Redux team that is still working on it, they're doing a lot of cool things, but actually updating an application with Redux can often be kind of hairy, where you have to touch like 5 files to update a single component.
Yeah.
But when you are smarter and more discerning about using reducers and context, then you can set it up in a way where you can just update it right in your little component here and there and have your components kind of state presentational, but use the state where needed, and then have you could have a global context that has a reducer at the top, and then have smaller contexts for different state parts of your application that need to be shared.
Cool. And do you write a lot of custom hooks, or do you just go with the core stuff, the core?
I do. It kind of depends. I almost always write, in most of my projects, I write some kind of like use local storage, where if I'm loading the application for the first time, I want storage to persist if someone closes the window and opens it up again. And so like if the local storage blob exists, great, use it. Otherwise, generate a new state from scratch.
Yeah.
And so that's typically a hook that I write for myself relatively often. And then I also tend to wrap up my context hooks as well, where I'll have like instead of use context and just using the global context and importing it every single time, I'll just have a hook that says use global state or whatever that takes in all of that, and so I can wrap up all of my context things. And then also I mentioned before there's a use promise hook that I should like write and make it so that way people can use it.
Yeah.
Because that's something that we talked a lot about when I was at React training and taught concepts about. But being able to have like a use promise, pass in some async function, and then it'll say like loading resolved error as states that are passed in, and then the data that you get from that. But someone asked, do hooks do the same as a Flux? So if you mean like the Flux architecture, you can, again, the Flux architecture, you can do that if you want. React is a library, not a framework. And so if you want to follow a specific kind of architecture that you like, if you really like Flux, go ahead and implement a Flux-like architecture with hooks. Our hooks are not built on that architecture. It's built as a way to manage state, as a way to use different callbacks and effects and stuff. The hooks are pattern agnostic. And so then Dan put it in a really good way in the chat. Use the right tool for the right problem, or context, pun. But yeah, there's thanks for posting that link right there on the hook stuff. In what case would you prefer a class over a function hook? Only error boundaries. That's pretty much the only case that you would ever need a class. Otherwise, you can reduce, another pun, you could reduce your code a significant amount by switching to function and hooks over class-based components. The only thing that hooks don't cover right now are error boundaries, but I also think that's coming. So soon there will be no reason to use class-based components. And actually, people have said that the React docs will be updated in a way where it'll be function components first rather than class-based components first. They just haven't been updated yet, but that's kind of the direction that React is going. And if you want to use future features like concurrent mode and suspense and stuff, you'll need to use hooks for that. Yeah. And so
cool. So
use hooks.
What got you into teaching, Cassidy? Like how did you get into, like, when did you start teaching? How did you realize that you were good at it or that you are enjoying it? Like how was that process like for you?
I've always enjoyed teaching myself, just people in general. Even when I was just doing regular software engineering work, I would teach workshops at like the community centers in the city and just to people who would be interested in. I've made online classes and stuff before. I'm sorry about the lag. There's some people who are.
Yeah, I'll check it. I'll check it. You talk.
Okay, I'll just keep talking. But anyway, I got into teaching mostly because really it just sounded fun. I really enjoy interacting with developers and stuff, and pretty much throughout my career I've done some form of developer evangelism or speaking at conferences and stuff, and I really love showing people how to do things. And basically, when I had the opportunity to switch jobs from a straight software engineering role to a teaching role, it was kind of a no-brainer to me. I loved the idea of teaching workshops, showing people things, and I think you can learn the best by teaching. When you teach a concept, you solidify it in your brain, and you have to come up with all the different ways that someone could be asking you questions on a particular topic. Anyway, I really love teaching, and so that's something that I've kind of told myself, even if I'm not a full-time workshop teacher or anything, I want to keep teaching in future roles just because I think it's so fun.
Yeah, and I think it's also I encourage also like quite junior people to also get into teaching as soon as possible, because like everyone thinks that, you need to be like a senior developer with 10 years of experience and whatever, and I think like, first of all, that you're a good engineer does not necessarily mean that you're a good teacher. And second of all, like as juniors, like also we like once we are just when you kind of like learn something and your knowledge is fresh, you can be like even more up to date with some things than like seniors or whatever. And also, yeah, like I would definitely think that it exposes your kind of like the holes in your own knowledge. It makes you think about things that like maybe you've not thought about, like, and also it kind of gives you, I would say, like empathy for other people, because you can see how different we are, how differently people approach a problem. Like even like I asked you would you approach learning React, and like some people would go like, oh, I need to read all the docs. The other people would say I need to just build projects and like just guess. So it's like I think I would encourage everyone to I mean now obviously meetups are kind of not happening, but when you get the chance, like even online or whatever, chats, video calls, to go into teaching, to try, because I think, yeah, it's a win-win situation, and it definitely kind of accelerates your own development as well.
Yeah, it's really true. And you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to know the most about this subject, or about a particular subject. And even if you don't, people can ask you questions, and you have to figure out how to answer that question. And sometimes in workshops, I've had to say, I honestly don't know, and I'm going to find out tonight and get back to you, because that sounds interesting. And it's a good way to, I think that kind of makes a good teacher, not calling myself a good teacher, but no, and being open about that and being willing to learn and then show them what you found based on the context of what you're teaching. Yeah. I think that is really key. Like, don't pretend that you know more than you do, and really just teach to the best of your ability, and show people what you can, and yeah, you learn the best by teaching, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Coder Dojo is great. There's also just now there's the Rails Girls Summer of Code, which is a really cool internship for women and non-binary folks. It's summer, 3 months, so July, August, September. 3 months, you're supposed to work on an open source project. So it's for complete beginners, but they also need support. So if you're interested into coaching, you should go and check out Rails Girls Summer of Code, because there you can find teams. Like, there's a lot of people actively looking for coaches, and it's a really fun thing to be involved, to flex your teaching skills and just do something good. Speaking of beginners, and like, what advice would you have for people that are self-teaching? So the people that don't go through boot camps or don't go through CS degrees, what advice would you have for those people?
I would say the best way to learn, I think, is to start applying it as soon as you can, and know that you won't know everything. Yeah. And one of the things that I've had to tell people who I've been helping on their self-teaching journey is just reminding them, you don't have to know every single nuance of how this function works, because chances are you only need to use it for 3 of those nuances or whatever. And so really just come up with like a project, and then try to build that project. And then if you don't know how to do a certain thing, look it up and then try to build it towards that. And then as you get this project going and it's working, then you move on to the next project where it's different, and keep building different things where you have the ability to just look up something and try something that you don't know. And as you apply things, you can kind of figure out, okay, I need to figure out more about API requests, because I don't know how to I don't know, handle fetch requests or something, or I need to learn more about how the math behind this works, or I need to know how this function works, that sort of thing. I feel like as you build things and just try and just start, and try to get over that hurdle of just starting a new project, that's when you start to learn, because you're just like, okay, I've gotten to this point and I want to get to this point. Let me figure out how to do this, and then get good practice at Googling and figuring out how to answer certain questions, because I feel like some of the best engineers are just people who can Google really well and navigate Stack Overflow and be just like, that question is somewhat similar to this topic, and if I relate it with this other question, then I can do this, I feel like being able to take someone else's knowledge and figure out how to apply it to your own is really useful.
Is that how you learn? Like, because obviously, like, as even if you're experienced, like, hooks come, you have to learn hooks. Like, so how do you go about like learning something new?
That's pretty much what I do. Yesterday I started building a kickboxing app. I don't even do kickboxing. A friend of mine was just like, you should build this, and it's like a timer thing, and I was just like, sure. And so I'm using this UI library that I know nothing about because I'm trying to figure out how to learn the UI library, and so I'm just kind of throwing stuff together to make a kickboxing app of all things. And yeah, that's basically how I teach myself things. I might watch a video or something. I might read the docs a bit, but I learn that the best way at seeing how it works.
And do you have like a group of people that can help you? Like, because I imagine that you also get stuck. You also have like problems, things that you can't figure out. Like, do you still have a group of mentors or something like that in your life?
Really, I'm in Slack groups and Discord groups and Twitter and Facebook, all of these different groups and technical groups where if I don't know what I'm doing, I just ask. And that's another thing that I think people who are self-learning and people who are more junior, it's very hard to ask questions because you're just like, I should know this. This is embarrassing. But if you ask the question, you'll get your answer and you can move on with your life. And it's great. Yeah. But if you just kind of, if you just kind of are like, I should know this, I'm just going to keep trying to figure it out, you might spend a lot of extra time on a problem unnecessarily. And so, yeah, if I would say I don't necessarily have like a technical mentor of some kind, but there are different people and different groups where I'll say, okay, I asked this question on Stack Overflow. Could someone look at this? Because if I get frustrated with something, if I just ask, chances are it's something silly. Yeah. If it's something open source, I can be like, look at this file. What's wrong? And it'll be something like a typo or a semicolon, something like that. Yeah. But when you, I do think it's important to get extra eyes on certain things. Just being willing to ask is a really key skill, I think.
But would you say that because asking kind of is admitting that you don't know something, would you say that that diminishes kind of your authority a bit? Like the other people, because I feel like there's a lot of posturing and also, the whole 10x developer thing and like people that are just just know everything and never make mistakes and are just super efficient and like we should emulate them and I don't know, drink bulletproof coffees with them. I don't know what they do, and especially I think as a woman, and I think also so for me, like I don't have a CS degree. I feel like there's always this. I need to kind of also prove that I belong here. Would you say that in your experience, have you ever had like then people kind of like doubting your skills because you were asking questions openly?
If they started doubting my skills, I either proved them wrong relatively quickly or they didn't talk about it. Luckily, there were definitely times, especially in college and early in my career, people would just be like, so you just got this job because you're a woman, huh? And stuff, which sucks. It really sucks to hear, but I think that's where you kind of have to fight off any sort of imposter syndrome and be just like, I know what I'm doing. I just didn't know about this particular topic. And so I can't dwell on the fact that I didn't know something about this particular thing, because if I do, then it's just going to eat at me. Yes, there are some times where I've been the only woman in the room and I'm just like, dang, I need to figure out how to word this so people aren't, not just questioning me, but don't take me seriously in some way. Okay. But luckily, I have gotten over the mental hurdles, and I just kind of ask anyway, because I'm just like, I'm just going to show them my code later, and they'll be just like, she does know what she's doing. That's kind of just how I have to do it, because otherwise, the mental tax will not be worth it.
And yeah, speaking of mental tax, how do you find, because you're obviously quite big on Twitter, have you ever, like, do you have issues with people, like trolls or people being unconstructive and like people being inappropriate and like sending you, because you have DMs open as well, like how's that working for you?
I mean, there are trolls that exist, and it's the internet, and I'm female, so that's just kind of, it's a given. I will say, I added that I'm married to my Twitter bio, and that has reduced the creepy messages significantly, and it's awesome. I wish I didn't have to put it there to make that happen, but it is very nice to have that. Yeah, a lot of times people will DM me, and it'll be just a person saying, "Hi, how do I learn React?" or teach me coding, and they'll just write like, "Hi, teach me coding, please," and that will be it. And
I mean, at least they added please. Come on.
They added please, and there are so many of those. At first, I was just like, I'll have these resources I'll paste in and go. But
let me solve your problem.
It's unfortunately there are so many of those that I just can't respond to them all. There's always people, especially when I make like silly videos or something, there's always people where they'll be just like, so you don't know how to do this, huh? And I'll be just like, no, it's a joke. It's just a joke. That's why I'm making a video about it. And lots of little things like that where just people getting very specific about criticisms because of a nuance that I added in a video as a joke, or sometimes not even. Sometimes not even on purpose. Where they're just like, you said this, or I don't know. There was one time where I was saying. In one of my videos, it was someone saying like, "Cassidy, why don't you speak up more?" And it would be just like, "If you gave me a chance, I would take it." And it was like to that song, "If you gave me a chance, I would take it." But here's the thing: I like dressed up as a man and I drew a little mustache, and I was just like, "Cassidy, why don't you speak up more?" And the people who messaged me talking about how I hate men because I did the mustache and said that a man said that to me, I was just like, but this is what happened.
But was it
I'm joking about that.
Was it men? Like, let's not generalize. Was it just men or mustachioed men? There were.
That's the other thing. I must hate mustaches. Anyway, so people get very specific about that, and it's stupid. But I mean, that's part of being on the internet.
So how did you like? How did you start with the videos? Like, how did you start with that? And
so in my past, like pre-TikTok and Vine and everything, I made silly videos for my cousins who are all younger than me. I'm the oldest of like all the cousins
the
in
elder
my family. The eldest. And I remember. People are telling me not to touch my face. I'm sorry. It's hard. So when they were younger and YouTube was like coming out and stuff, there wasn't a lot of content on the internet that was good for kids to consume. And so for them, I would make silly videos and stuff just for them. And they're still somewhere out there, but they're just stupid little videos where we made up a story and I would have them act with me and we would just have a good time, and then they could watch YouTube without fear of, I don't know, so them watching something inappropriate or something. And so I've always enjoyed making silly videos and stuff, and then I just kind of stopped after a certain point when I went to college and then started working. And then last year, there were all of these people talking about 10x engineers, and that one thread of where the guy was just like, you have to hire a 10x engineer, here's what they want, and it was just comically bad. And I was just like, man, I could make a really funny video with this, where I just like say a bunch of these random phrases that a 10x engineer would do. But I didn't know what medium to do it on, because like I didn't really want to put it on YouTube. I wanted to share it on Twitter, and funnily enough, iMovie doesn't let you film in vertical. You have to do horizontal, and I wanted to do it vertical because it was on my phone, which is a silly nuance, but something that I cared about. Touch my face again. Basically, that led me to discover TikTok, and TikTok is hilarious, and it's just kind of full of youths that dance and prank their parents and stuff. But their video editor is awesome, and so I'm able to just kind of put it together and add music and stuff without having to put too much effort into this whole stitching together thing. And so that's how I joined TikTok, because I was just like, I want to make this video, and their editor is really fast. And so then I tweeted the video, and I was just like, oh, that went pretty well. People liked that. That's fun. And then I saw this meme where they were using a song that I really liked, and I was just like, oh, I could make that related to code. That'd be kind of fun. And then kind of slowly but surely, I just kind of kept using TikTok because the medium worked. And yeah, luckily people have really liked it. And it's not so much that I'm doing it like to crave followers. Again, this sweatshirt isn't so that way I get followers. My sister got it for me as a
Yeah.
joke.
You keep saying that.
But it's a fun way to kind of interact with developers and kind of make light of some of the struggles that we all face. Being just like, oh, what's this terrible code? Oh, I hate it. Oh, dang, I wrote it. Just little jokes like that, and things that happen in a developer's life constantly. And so that's kind of how I got started doing the videos. And honestly, the audience that came with it, I did not expect. I think since I first made that video about the 10x engineers, that was in like June or July, I've gained a wild amount of followers that I did not expect, like more than 70,000. And it has been rapid, and I have to be very careful because there are so many trolls on the internet again. But it's been really fun, and I really like making those jokes and lip syncing and that kind of thing. And so it's something that I enjoy doing, and then the audience happened to follow.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. You should keep doing them. They're really good fun.
Ooh, and there's a lot of comments.
Yeah. Shall we read
on the
them?
topic of trolls, if you aren't a troll and have an identity that isn't marginalized or underrepresented in some way, there's an opportunity for you to encourage the troll types to do better. Yes, please do. Stop them. I think like there's such a thing as friendly trolling, but unfortunately, internet trolls are not always the friendly kind. And so you can joke with people and be good with it, but be careful about what you say.
So
someone also asked if I've automated the pie time tweet. No, that is always me manually doing it. I actually did it. I think I was live streaming at one point, like last week, and I was just like, wait, it's pie time, and I had to pull out my phone and tweet it really quick, and people were just like, wait, you actually do that? But I do. If I see that it's 3:14, I manually tweet it, no matter where I am in the world. And so, yes, it is not automated in any way.
Well done.
Thank you.
I think. Do you still have time, or is it like?
Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome, cool.
I'm not doing anything. I don't have a job.
So next, mechanical keyboards.
Yes.
Opinions?
I don't know how to start. They're great. Okay. I love keyboards, and I'm ready to talk about them
for the next 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, cool. What do you want to know? Do you want to know how to build them or why they're great?
Let's go with why they're great to start with.
Okay. Mechanical keyboards are great. A little bit of history. All keyboards used to be mechanical pretty much early in like the 80s and stuff. They were popularized with the IBM Model M keyboard, and they were just really hardy, well-built keyboards that still work today. Like a lot of IBM Model M keyboards are still in use today because they were so robust. And then as computers got more popularized, so did their parts, and so keyboards started to kind of be made into more membrane style keyboards, they're called, where instead of like an actual mechanical switch that makes a connection with the electronics underneath the PCB, it's more like a little rubber dome that is pushed against and makes a capacitive press against a PCB. And those keyboards work just fine, but they don't necessarily last. Those kinds of keyboards are the kinds that will, like, you'll see the shine on the spacebar and things will rub off and the electronics might stop working. And so mechanical keyboards kind of started to become popular because people wanted to return to that quality. And then people were just like, we could start making it a little more custom. And then that's when they started really getting popular, and especially in the past few years. This board is like a solid aluminum board. This is actually a keycap set I designed, DSS Tekla, and there's so many different switches that you can make. These are a linear switch called Helios, and notice how quiet they are. And people are saying, how do you stop your colleagues from killing you when you use a mechanical keyboard? Just get quieter switches. Yes, you could have a nice loud one like this and drive people crazy. You can, people will not like that, but if you work from home, you don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
Or you could have really quiet switches where people can't really hear what you're typing. And so there's options not only for the switch, you can see how heavy you want your switches to be. You can, I have another like silenced board here that I don't even know if you can hear it. You can get switches that are very, very quiet. You can get switches that are loud. You can get switches that are tactile. You can get switches that are linear. You can get keycaps. Again, this is called DSS Tekla because of the shape of the keycap. See how it kind of scoops out like this? And then this is one where, sorry, this is a really heavy keyboard. It has clicky switches, but these keycaps are cherry-styled keycaps, GMK, and so they kind of look more like traditional ones there. And this one here, that's a 3D printed board where the keycaps are much more scooped and everything, and so it's like your fingers are getting a hug and they're tall. So anyway, you can do so much with mechanical keyboards and customize the case, the keycaps, the switches, the programming, the cable, anything, and they are so great. I've definitely went over 2 minutes.
But here's a coupon code. No, we don't have coupon codes.
No, sorry.
But so when you say you're building mechanical keyboards, what does that mean?
So you get the parts. And so, for example, on this board here, I had the keycaps, and I got the keycaps from, there's a website, Pimp My Keyboard. Again, I designed them if you want them. And I got the keycaps for this board. I also got the switches from a different site, and that one is drop.com. And for those, I got Helios switches, and then I had them custom lubed, where you take out the switches and then add like grease in there so that way they go down smoother and stuff, and it's nice and soft. Then with this board, I had the actual case itself. I have a cable that I had to add to it with the actual electronics in here. Depending on the PCB, the electronics that you get, you have to either solder and be willing to solder the switches to the board, or you can get what's called a hot swappable PCB, which is what I had here, which means you can just kind of pop the keycaps in the board without having to solder them, which is nice, but risky if you don't get a nice PCB, but it's very convenient. And I just realized that I messed up my spacebar. I gotta fix that. Anyway, yeah, you get the switches, the keycaps, the case, the PCB, and you put it all together, and then you program it. And that is what it needs to build a mechanical keyboard.
And if you because I'm sure people ask you like, what's a good first set? What would you tell them?
That is really dependent on you. Whenever someone asks me that, I need to make a guide for this because I get asked that all the time. I would ask, what size do you want first? And so, for example, there's the full size where it's like this plus the numpad. Yeah, I kind of was just like, let's discuss. So there's the one with the numpad on the side.
With this.
Nice, yes. So that's a full size board. Nice board.
I know.
This is what's called a TKL, which means 10 kilos, the board here, and it's also known as like an 80% board. Then there's a size, one second, I'm gonna reach there's this size. This is called a 68% board, and so it still has the arrow keys and some function keys, but there's not a function row at the top. And so, as you can see, it's a little bit less, but it's more compact too. Then it gets smaller to a 60% board, and so there's no arrow keys, and so you can kind of program where you want the arrow keys to be, and that's where you start getting layers. And actually, this one is considered a 60% board too, because it just doesn't have the things at the bottom. So as you notice, I have this HKJL for like Vim things. I programmed it to map caps lock to a function, and so whenever I do caps lock with my pinky, I can use HKJL as my arrow keys. And then some people, they'll do function here and do like the WASD, like gaming keys and stuff. And so there are layers you can activate within the board. And I programmed other things like function M mutes, and then I could do volume up and down if I hold function. So you can program all kinds of different layers and macros and stuff in there. And then they get smaller. There's such thing as a 40% board. I've got one. Okay. And so this is called a plank. And so it's an orthogonal board. And so it has, it's not staggered. You know how you normally have like the little diagonal. This one is more of a grid. And so they get smaller still. And then these are the two function keys where if I do this one, then it turns this into a number row and this into symbols. And then if I do this one, then it makes like a keypad and stuff like that. And so you can really program things to do a lot of different stuff. I would say for a small board like this, it takes getting used to, but it's really fun because you can you can kind of be very compact. I find after I've used this for a while and then I switch back to a big board, I'm just like, oh, why do I have to move my hands to get to the arrow keys? And it's life is so hard. But anyway, there's a lot of things that you can do depending on the size that you want. Oh, and there's also I kind of showed this before. I don't know why I pulled it out like this, but this is how I looked at it. So this is a split board where it's more like it's you know you can put your thumbs on it and spread it out on both of your armrests or whatever. This one's called an iris. I actually laser cut the case for this, soldered it, got the custom switches and keycaps. It was a fun project. Anyway, there's so many different shapes and sizes, and so once you pick a size, then you find a budget. And then you get your parts based on that budget. Yes, I have so many keyboards. Oh, this one back here. This one, it's called a 96% layout because it still has the numpad, but everything is kind of squished. So the space that was in between here, they just kind of added these two function keys and stuff.
So, but then how do you, because obviously they're all different sizes and they're all programmed differently. How do you, like, do you then continue to just use one, or you keep switching, or like, do other get jealous, or how do you
rotate out constantly, which sometimes takes some getting used to, especially because some of them, for example, like this one that I showed before, the backspace is on a lower level than it usually is. If you look down at your keyboard now, there's usually a slash there, but the slash is moved up here on this board, and that's just how this one is laid out. Sometimes it takes some getting used to, but you can, especially once you kind of get used to rearranging how you type, and you can also change this to like Dvorak layouts or however you want. You can, it's pretty quick. You'd be surprised how fast you can learn that kind of stuff. There are a lot of questions in the chat. They're all plugged in all the time, and I just move from keyboard to keyboard. It's true. I like grow extra arms, and you just see everything flying.
It's true. Like since we've moved on to the topic of keyboards, like the speed of your speech has like went up like 1.4, and you're just like, and this one, but this one also I will touch this one.
Also this. Yeah, I have so many keyboards. But I wanted to show this. I have this wooden one I made, but I messed up. So I mentioned like the hot swappable PCBs are dangerous. This one, sadly, these two keys don't work, and so I have to resolder stuff. Okay. But it's a pretty board. I just have to fix it. And so you can see some of the dirty underbelly here as I have to get that working again.
Is it like is it an expensive hobby or?
Yes. And so it's one of those things where I always look for things that are on sale and try to reduce the costs as much as I can. If I'm being honest, I got into designing keycaps because I wanted free keycaps because I thought they were too expensive. And I was like, if I design them, then they'll be forced to give them to me for free. And it worked. And so I've designed a few keycap sets, and it's all really fun to work on them. And so yeah, this one is DSS Tekla. I don't have a board with Scrabble on it right now, but I actually designed and licensed a Scrabble mechanical keyboard.
Nice.
And got those sold. And then there's another set coming out called Astrala Keys that I worked on with, her name's Amy, but her handle is Sailor HG, Sailor Mercury. And we designed this like cute pastel one, and I have some other ones coming out. But yeah, it can be expensive. There are these things called artisan keycaps, which I have one. It's this like nice and shiny one right here.
Yeah.
There are some artisan keycaps that cost literally $1,000, and I don't understand it because it's such a small piece of plastic, but like an artisan made it, and there's some beautiful keycaps out there. But they're so fun and so pretty, and the customizability of mechanical keyboards make it great. Like I know some people where they kind of turn all of these keys that they don't use just into like their streaming controls for streaming, or people where they're just like, if I do these two function keys and this, then it will like paste in a React class for me, or the use effect hook or something like that. And so the programmability is really, really fun, and lets you really just customize your workspace. And I didn't even get into the LED lighting. But
yeah, let's do that for the next episode. So
yeah.
for the mapping, what do you use? Like the carabiner keys, or like how do you remap the keys?
So there's options. There's this firmware that's open source called QMK, like the letters Q, M, and K, and that works on pretty much all keyboards at this point. There are very few keyboards that don't use QMK, and you can import a key map and then flash it to your keyboard once you've plugged it in, and it'll pretty much generally work. There's also a software that's built with Electron called VIA, and it's basically a mapper for QMK, but you don't have to do like program in C or anything. You could just like make it work. And that's actually what I used for this one. I used VIA for the first time when I built this one last week, 2 weeks ago. With this one, I was basically able to say where I wanted my keys to be and hit a button, and it worked. And it was great. And it was the easiest keyboard programming I've ever done. And so I'm going to try to experiment with that a little more to see how flexible it can get, but it can do macros and stuff too.
And someone's asking, have you ever built an ergonomic keyboard?
Yeah, I would say this is probably the one where I had the two halves. This is probably the most ergonomic one that I did, and I've been meaning to 3D print like a tent, so that way they can be like a little triangle here on my desk instead of just flat.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that yet because I need to make the model for it. But there are lots of options. There's actually a Kickstarter for keyboard I/O. And it's called the Atrius, and I don't have it in this room. It's upstairs, but it's a split keyboard that is like attached in the middle, but is still like nice typing on the side. And that one is cool because it's a 40% keyboard that's split, and so it's still very small, but it is side to side and very programmable and nice. I liked it.
I like how Chris said that you write so much code that all the keyboards are plugged in all the time, and you just move, like those child prodigy chess players. They play, like 20 grandmasters, and then they like walk from one to the other and like that's how I imagine you doing that.
Basically it.
And someone's asking me, because I use Eventbrite for kind of to get people to RSVP, but mostly so that they would get a notification when we're live. It works okay. It's free. You can get so obviously these tickets were free, but also we could charge for this, Cassidy. So but yeah, it works well, especially like for the notification thing. I think it's quite cool.
Someone asked if I had a favorite keyboard.
You can't say that. Well,
they're
they're in the room.
They'll be here. I have a few that I like. They're special to me in different ways. This wooden one that again I'm still trying to fix it. Uh, I got the keycaps for that like 2 years ago, and I put them on just another board for a while. But I've been trying to find the perfect like wooden board for the or wooden case one for a long time. And actually, I'm just gonna unplug my keyboard from the computer now. This one right here took me a long time to put together. And so the actual keycap set for like the grays and the blues and then this top row, or most of the top row, it's a set called SA Oblivion. And so that was from like a limited group buy and stuff. The actual num row here, this and this I got from just like a grab bag. You can get keycap grab bags from manufacturers, and so I was able to actually get each individual ones of these keys because I really wanted the red. And then the switches I got from a group buy, and they're some nice silenced tactile switches. And then the case itself, I actually got in Korea, where they don't actually like make it here. I was visiting my husband's family's from Korea, and so we were visiting family there, and I was just like, this is where I can
Bye,
get
family.
this yeah. No, I literally was just like, so this is nice, and you all don't speak English. And so I was just
Any
like,
deliveries?
like, can you ask them to buy me this keyboard? Because it was like a website that only had it in Korea, and it's a heavy board. I'm actually having to like hold my arm up. It's like almost 5 pounds. It's really heavy, and we basically had to like get it shipped to my husband's uncle's business and everything, and I love this board. It's so fun. I loved it so much that I got 2 of them, and that's what this board also is. But it has clicky switches instead.
It's like an infinite number of keys. Like I feel like you keep pulling like something.
Where are they?
Do you have like someone under the desk like just like, giving you news?
Give me the next one.
But do you since you have like the designs and everything, do you also then like sell them like as a side gig, or is it just for your own personal collection?
When I design a keycap set, I kind of, it's like a licensing type of agreement, and so I'll like, for example, these keycaps, Pimp My Keyboard. Pimp My Keyboard is the actual manufacturer of those keycaps, so luckily there's no middleman, and so I was able to be just like, can I give you this design to sell on your own and get a cut of that? And it's not much. I think I've made a grand total of like $30 on selling it. But hey, that's like several coffees or bookmarks.
That's like 2 domains. Like yeah,
right. I could get a really cheap domain and sustain it for several years if I don't use it.
Exactly.
And that's what these keycaps buy. And so like designing keycaps isn't exactly a lucrative business, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. And actually, I said I don't have Scrabble keycaps on the board right now, but these are actually sample keycaps. You can kind of look at them. You can see the legends on there, the little scores and stuff. And so these are actually old sample keycaps. This is just kind of a fun board that I don't use as much. But I used to design and laser cut a case with the Scrabble keycaps, and so I've been working on that, and so that's why I don't have a board with those right now. Someone said, I'm shipping keyboard from Korea instead of kimchi. That hardboard keyboard love. It was kind of fun because, oh man, I ate so much kimchi in Korea. Yeah. We visited my husband's grandma, and she just had these tubs that were like 5 feet high, just full of kimchi that she was making, and it was amazing.
And you're like, do you like, so kimchi, right? I love kimchi, don't get me wrong, but
so
kimchi long term, like a lot of kimchi, a long time, the smell, the everything, is it?
You definitely have to like put it in a container that is wrapped multiple times, otherwise that smell will get everywhere. Yeah, we have to like have a jar and then put that jar in a bag and then seal that bag a little extra. Otherwise, that's all our fridge will smell like. But I love kimchi. I think it's so good.
Yeah, cabbage.
Yeah, spices.
More love for the cabbage. So what is your keyboard end game?
I don't know. Every time I think I've reached end game, then I see another pretty case or keycap set. I'm just like, that's the one. I do try to like sell boards that I don't use as much, so that way I don't just like keep filling up my table here just full of keyboards, but that ship has long sailed. We have so many keyboards in this home, but it's a really fun hobby project.
Yeah.
I don't spend money on a lot of things, and so keyboards are my Achilles heel, my kryptonite.
Okay. Cool. I think any final thoughts that you have besides keyboards? Let's
Oh yeah, we totally got off all JavaScript topics to get into this. Oops.
Let's close that chapter. Do you have any like final shout outs where people can reach you? Things.
So this Cassidy handle, I'm wearing the sweatshirt again. That's my GitHub, that's my CodePen, that's my LinkedIn, that's my Twitter. That's not my Instagram because a teenager took it from me and won't give it to me. I think she's actually not even a teenager anymore. I've checked in and been just like, can I have it? And she doesn't respond to me. It's fine. Anyway, I don't really use Instagram as a result, but Twitter, Cassidy is where I usually am, and then like my website is cassidy.co. If you look up Cassidy Williams, you can find me. There's myself and a Scooby-Doo character, and I'm not the Scooby-Doo character. Even though I have "doo" at the end of my name, that was unintentional, and I have to live with that now.
Okay, then thank you for your time, for your expertise.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for people in the chat hanging out.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, cool.